Welcome to Truth by Billie Beene. Today's date, July 11, 2025. Time in Texas, about 1 p.m. I have a subscribe button in the lower right corner of my screen. Thanks for like, subscribe, and share, and for hitting the like button. That helps my channel to grow. Some of the things we'll cover today. Antarctica and facial recognition. Does it have embedded in it a environmental, social, and government assessment and information about the individual, like China's system? I think it probably does. So we see another area where it's possible that the U.S. government is gaslighting the American people. Oh, we're not judging you based on your political interest, or we don't keep data on you. Shut up. Okay, so let's get started. So we'll begin with the U.S., what's happening weather-wise and otherwise. So we have this from Space Weather. I got this off of YouTube Space Weather. That's Ben Davidson's site, formerly Suspicious Observers. The largest hole seen on the sun is now facing Earth, and it's predicted to release solar wind soon, and we can now expect an increase in the number of earthquakes and volcanoes, and also an increase in tropic development. We're talking about hurricanes. Japan continues to have a swarm of earthquakes along its southern border. And we have, and Ben Davison puts forth, and this is based on some white papers that came out recently, 60% of what's called global warming actually equals higher nighttime temperatures. In other words, we're not cooling off as much at night as we used to. And we have this from Ryan Hall. Y'all, flash floods, North Carolina, severe thunderstorms and tornadoes, North Carolina, Washington, D.C., and Maryland. And we're seeing also thunderstorms in Texas. So we have this from Texas Governor Abbott, that the Texas flag will be flown at half-staff until July 14 sunrise in honor of the flood victims and their families. And we've had 10 states send help to Texas. Thank you. And so that's going on. Now we have this. In Texas, we currently have 121 dead. That includes Kerr County, Kerrville, Texas, and 6 other counties. 96 of the 121 have passed away in Kerr County. President Trump and Melania are to visit Texas today. And we have this going on. We have 170 plus missing. And we have new help in this area in locating bodies. Scripps News reports one group is using AI plus sonar. They do the sonar and get the signals back, then the AI interprets it. And they located an area yesterday that was in Kerr County. And they tried to send in divers, but the divers could only go down 3 feet. They were locating what they thought was a body about 6 feet down. And the reason the divers could only go down 3 feet is because of the swift currents still ongoing in the Guadalupe River. So they will continue their search, and Governor Abbott had said the state of Texas will be relentless until we have rescued or recovered all. And we have this. So we have stuff going on with Mount Reneer. Mount Reneer is the largest mountain in Texas, in the U.S., 14,400 feet. We continue to see a swarm of earthquakes there. And it's believed Wes Thielen, a seismologist, observes that the swarm with Mount Rainier could also be an indicator of the Cascadia area, which is about this area in the U.S., with volcanoes becoming more active. And Mount Rainier last erupted 1,000 years ago. And we have this from EARTHMASTER. In the last 3 days, we've had a swarm at Mount Rainier, 800 to 900 small earthquakes. The biggest was a 2.3. But still, we're seeing a swarm 2 miles deep. Now, 5 miles deep is the molten area. So what they're talking about, Mount Rainier. So we've got this mountain, volcano, and we have this layer of water, and then we have a layer of where we would see magma or lava. So they're saying it's the water level that is churning. So that could be an indicator of something going on. And we're seeing more earthquakes now swarm around Mount Rainier than we saw in the last episode, 2009, when they had 1,000 earthquakes in 3 days. So that's going on. And we have this. Now we'll talk about what's going on in Antarctica and weather. So we have the U.S., South America, and then we have Antarctica, South Pole. And what is happening now is a perfect storm to create what, as Mike from around the world has been giving warning of on Pastor Paul Begley's Thursday night program, a dramatic increase in thunderstorms, larger and more frequent hail, and catastrophic, life-threatening flash flooding. And this is coming from 2 areas, I submit. One is both the atmosphere, and one is both the oceans, land. Now, what we're seeing in Antarctica is a reverse of what it is I learned in college with regard to the oceans. What I learned was the polar areas would melt, and that would release fresh water into the oceans, and that would stop the ocean currents and then go into an ice age. What we're seeing actually occurring with our own lying eyes right now is a reverse of this. So we're seeing, and now in 2020, God gave me this information, that inside the earth, magma was rising in all directions. And this appears to be true with regard to Antarctica. Antarctica is melting, not from the top down to release fresh water, but from the bottom up, and is going to release salt water. And this will increase. So I'll do this this diagram. I think you'll get this. We also have, we have changes in the atmosphere. We have changes in the land and ocean. In the atmosphere around the Earth, we have the Earth's geomagnetic shield that comes out from the center of the Earth, creates an electromagnetic shield which has been decreasing for decades and lets in more radiation to the Earth. So we have radiation up. That means the temperature in the sky goes up. That means the atmosphere can hold more water. So we have the atmosphere holding more water. We have the land and oceans, the melting under Antarctica, releasing salt. Now, the model I learned for rain is you have a dust particle and then H2O collects around it. When it's heavy enough, it falls from clouds as rain. In this case, with the Antarctica melting from the bottom, we're going to have salt in the air, which is much larger than dust. Therefore, we would have more rain. So we're going to have more rain. The atmosphere is going to hold more. So we can expect to see a higher frequency of these catastrophic life-threatening flash floods, a higher frequency of severe thunderstorms, a higher frequency of larger hail, and so on. So that's going on. And Mike from around the world says what we're seeing in Texas could become more frequent across the U.S. So now that leads the question to geoengineering. Well, if that's true, and I found out we have 3 companies in Texas doing geoengineering. Now, I can see a use for geoengineering. Say you have a drought. You could use seed clouding to produce rain in a drought area. I'm not denying that. But MonkeyWorks documented that we were seeing seed clouding above Texas 2 days before that catastrophic flash flood. And what the seed clouding did was saturate the ground. Now, I agree, this appears to be a group, and it would have to be somewhere in the U.S. government, possibly DARPA, using weather warfare against the state of Texas. That's how I see it. And we're hearing that President Trump's EPA Secretary Lee Zeldon is going to be releasing all the information that the government has on geoengineering and cloud seeding. But I'm also hearing the government may be trying to gaslight the American people also on geoengineering. But we'll have to watch what is the information Lee Zeldon releases. If the U.S. government comes out and says, oh, there's nothing to seed clouding and chemtrails are not real and so on, then we will deep down know that the U.S. government is lying to the American people, direct to our face. Yeah, so that's going on. And we have this, Mike from around the world, Pastor Paul Begley's show. Antarctica is melting from the bottom. It's releasing salt. The atmosphere is heated up because our electromagnetic shield around the Earth lets in more radiation from the sun. And a possible site to be hit with all these atmospheric changes also would be volcanoes. And as I said, God said magma's rising in all directions. So we need to keep our eye on Mount Reneer. So that's going on. And now we have this. Yeah, this is from Mr. MBB333, Antarctica melt. The Antarctica melting could release ancient viruses for which we wouldn't have modern day immunity, although I submit the immunity to ancient viruses would be still in our DNA, because that's how God operates. And he puts forth the increased salinity of the oceans, because Antarctica is melting from the bottom and releasing more salt into the ocean, will affect the ocean currents. Yes, that's being put forth too. And yeah, rapid extreme melt is not included in our climate models, and I put this forth. Now the government is cutting positions with like NOAA, I believe space weather, other public government avenues of information. They're cutting positions there. I submit they're moving these specialists to other parts of the government where the people only put forth information that goes to the government, and that the U.S. government is engaged now in cutting down on the amount of information that goes to the public. And this includes NOAA, includes the National Hurricane Center, includes space weather, and so on. So that's going on. And we see China as having flash floods too. These catastrophic flash floods will be a global event. And they're having flash floods along their border with Nepal. I have a Facebook friend, a Christian missionary from Nepal. And they had flash flooding there along the China-Nepal border, and it washed away the Mitten Bridge. So that's going on. Now we have this from Daily Science, talking about glaciers melting will increase the number of volcanoes. Now, Daily Science is putting this forth, that the massive polar areas of frozen ice, as they melt, then they decrease in their weight, which he submits will release magma moving inside the earth and an increase in volcanoes. So I find that logical. We have this from Hal Turner, Bezos. He is selling an additional $108 million of his Amazon stock. Just a couple of days ago, he sold $166 million of Amazon stock. So some economists are speculating we're seeing the big boys sell off massive amounts of their stocks. What do they know that we don't? And we have this, facial recognition. So this is from Business Reform by Dr. John Podfield. And, okay, so facial recognition. Now we're finding out, he puts forth an interesting, he's demonstrating different products that can thwart the facial recognition, and he found some glasses that would do it. But they're pricey, about $200. But he puts out some additional information that when you're shopping in stores like Macy's or Kroger or Albertsons, that facial recognition also has your income information. I believe it's a full-fledged environmental, social, government adaptation. I believe it was hidden in facial recognition. So for your income, then when you go to check out, based on a combination of your facial recognition and your income that's built into facial recognition systems, then the system will determine what to charge you for that product. I know when I'm shopping, I have items on my list and I don't always check prices. I just assume they're going to be a little bit higher, but a little bit. So it comes out now that, and most people do shop that way, unless you're really on a tight budget. You go to the store, you pick up the items you have on your list. But according to business reform, in some stores, including these three major store systems, based on your facial recognition, the AI operating the cash register will decide how much to charge you. I submit, this is my position, that ESG, environmental social government, is now built into face recognition. I submit the possibility that they have your medical records, they have your social security number, they have your driver's license number, they have how you voted in the last election, and so on. So we see the U.S. government knew that the American people would never accept an overt system to track Americans. So they just hid it in the facial recognition system, selling it to the American people as a way of determining, are you an American citizen? Are you an illegal? Are you a criminal? So I put this forth also. When we have the FBI saying they can't locate someone in the U.S., we need to all unite and say, shut up. Because they can. It's as bad as that movie. I think that's Eagle Eye, something like that. Yeah, so that's going on. So, business reform reviewed several products, and he said that facial recognition also is embedded with, has embedded with it also your criminal record, your military record, and is actively being used in New Orleans, where the New Orleans police kept it secret from the New Orleans City Council, who had voted against using facial recognition in New Orleans. But the New Orleans police are doing it. And he's putting forth that this is a nationwide Project NOLA. In other words, the police are using facial recognition to determine, like I said, are you citizen, illegal, criminal, and so on. What I'm saying is that this environmental social government system that the U.S. government knew the American people would never accept has been embedded in facial recognition. So that's going on. And yeah, so President Trump's EPA Director Lee Zeldon is to release all the information the U.S. government has on geoengineering and cloud seeding. So we're going to have to assess that with our own lying eyes and see, is the U.S. government also gaslighting us on geoengineering? As we see right now, they are gaslighting us on the Epstein client list, and I believe they've been gaslighting us for years on the facial recognition system and all the additional areas it is tracking on American citizens. It's good to be in prayer for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, and world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.